you're at home and it's raining and you can't go outside. I can't take my dog for a walk. They can't run around in the yard. They can't do that. So what are some things that I can do in the house to not only mentally tire my dog, but physically tire them? And doing Paws Up and the pivots and the sit to stands. And, it could be 5 or 10 minutes and your dog is exhausted.
Hey everyone, welcome to Dog Sense. I'm Kathy and I'm here with my co-host Sarah, who's all the way in Colorado. Hey Sarah.
Hey guys.
All right, so we have a special guest in the house, in the studio, such as it is.
Yeah.
It is Lauren, and she is the head trainer at my New Jersey school. And Lauren and Sarah and I are all certified canine athlete specialists. And that means that your dog and our dog's physicality and physical health is really important to us. So Sarah and I thought it'd be great to pull Lauren into a conversation about a class that we have all taught, but right now at the school Lauren is teaching it, called Canine Gym.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
It's so fun, right?
It is fun.
Do you like our plant?
I love your plant. I think that's my favorite part about the whole room. It's just the plant and this chair. I want to get this chair.
All right. So when we tell clients that they should come to Canine Gym, sometimes they're like, why? Because I don't even go to the gym. So what are some of the reasons, and we'll just do like a roundtable discussion about this, that we tell clients they should come to Canine Gym?
Yeah, I think it's really great for not only puppies, but older dogs too, right? So we talk about, most of the time the fitness is, you want to do when your dog gets older, or if they have a hip issue or a knee issue or whatever, but it's not really just for those types of dogs too. It's also something that you can even do proactively when you have a puppy, right? So, we talk about doing canine gym and building up the muscles and all that stuff. And then, yeah, you're right. People are like, I don't want that. But, it
I don't want my dog any stronger.
Yeah, right. Yeah. He's gonna
oh no.
Yeah. But it helps with, your sit weights and your down weights and keeping the dog in those positions for longer periods of time. And so I feel like it really does help with the obedience as well. So it ties in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also what Lauren touched on too is being proactive, right? We want our dogs to live the most amazing, healthy, long lives. And a lot of times injuries like torn CCLs or other soft tissue injuries, those can be the kinds of things that can really shorten your dog's lifespan, depending on what you're able to do in terms of surgeries to fix them, rehab. There's a ton of work that goes into fixing injuries like that could have been prevented with simple things like doing canine gym exercises. And it doesn't need to be super complicated either. There's a lot of really simple stuff that you can do with your dog that doesn't have to be really complicated and take too much time out of your day either.
And when we're starting with puppies, one of the things that it does is it builds the relationship. It teaches them about training. It builds their confidence because we teach them you can stand on things that are wobbling. But for puppies and dogs, the relationship build, I think, comes through the body handling. And that's something not a lot of people work on. And so they work on it inadvertently through positioning their dog on these pieces of equipment. And then when the dog has to go to the vet or they have to clean their ears, the dog is like, oh, I get it. You can touch my body and I don't lose my mind because it's fun and it's rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah. All tie in together with the obedience and all that stuff.
Yep. You hit all of the points that you want to just in this one simple class.
Yeah. And I like what, Sarah had just mentioned too, like you don't need fancy equipment. Like, yeah, you can go online and you can buy all the bells and whistles, but you can use like a bucket, or you can use we did all that during COVID when we did this stuff online. Right. So, you can get a bowl and you can flip it upside down. I had some people use like a pot, like a kitchen pot, a pan, or, a ream of paper, or, whatever. You
have this stuff around your house.
Right.
And now we're going to tell you how to use it and what to use so you can get some level of fitness for your dog. Now, before we start, we want to mention that, yes, your dog should be healthy and free of injury. And so if you're not sure, check with your vet. We feel that most dogs are able to do Paws Up and things like that without a vet check, but you should make sure that your dog is healthy because we don't want to create any injuries.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I think Paws Up that's like a really good starting point, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, so what would you guys say are your top 3 canine gym exercises that would be really easy for owners to be able to start off with at home?
I think Paws Up is probably the easiest. I actually incorporate some kind of Paws Up usually like in puppy classes at the school. Usually in the beginning, because it like gets them focused on just something. But I think Paws Up is probably one of the easiest.
And I like Paws Up because you can do other things off of it.
Yeah.
You can do sit to stand while they're in Paws Up. You can also teach rotations and teach the dog to move in the rear and get better balance and get better coordination. And then with something like that, you can change the texture or the surface of the ground that you're doing it on to create even more challenge and more, interest and sort of, making your dog work a little bit harder.
I don't think we brought this up either, but how tired they get afterwards, right?
Yeah.
So like, you're at home and it's raining and you can't go outside. I can't take my dog for a walk. They can't run around in the yard. They can't do that. So what are some things that I can do in the house to not only mentally tire my dog, but physically tire them? And doing Paws Up and the pivots and the sit to stands. And, it could be 5 or 10 minutes and your dog is exhausted.
And you're pretty soon you're watching Netflix and he's taking a nap and you're like, I love owning a dog. This is amazing.
And also another aspect too, that also helps, like the way, Lauren, you said you added into your puppy classes too, right? Like for the owner to figure out how to lure the dog into those positions, that's mental work. For basically the owner needs to learn the handling, but the dog has to figure out what the heck you want as well. When you're trying to lure them onto Paws Up on a variety of different services, that's using a lot of brain power. It doesn't look like a lot, but that's the kind of stuff that'll really exhaust your dog.
And it teaches you, the handler, to be a better trainer, right? How are you moving that cookie? Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it high? Is it low? Like you have to know these things and you come to that learning through this relationship you're getting with your dog. So let's start with, what could they teach their puppy to Paws Up on? Now, I guess the first thing to say is you need to have a surface that's not slippery.
Yeah, not slippery and not something that's going to be unstable, at least to start off with. You want to do something that's stable
and low. Right. We like you start an inch or two. It doesn't have to be a big, high thing. It just could be.
I think you want it a couple inches off the ground so it's clear to the dog that they're stepping onto something. And also I think something that's not too narrow. Like a lot of times we'll suggest using like a yoga block for training. That's probably a little bit too narrow to start off with for teaching Paws Up. You want a little bit of a bigger target so it's easier for your dog to figure out what you want. So like Lauren had said, an upside down food bowl, an upside down kitchen pot, an old textbook or something. I use that a lot as well. The upside down Home Depot buckets. Those are good ones too.
Yeah, you can do like a cookie sheet too. Like if you flip that over, it might make some noise, but that'll help too. But in the beginning, we say you want it to be a lower surface because the higher up the object is, the more weight you're putting on the rear, right? So you don't want it to be too high and then you're going to really tire the dog out. You want to start off low because they're not used to all that weight back there. Usually how I explain it is, your dog is standing on all 4 feet and all their weight is evenly distributed. Now you're taking those 2 front feet and putting it up on something a little bit higher. So maybe now like 10% of that weight that was on the front is now in the rear. Yeah. So you got 40% in the front and 60 in the back. So if you add more weight to that, or you do it when the dog's not used to having that weight back there, it's like going to the gym for the first time and pounding through 100 squats.
Who would ever do that? Not anybody we know.
Nope.
And they can't walk the next day.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And you could even do like a paperback book. Take into account the size of your dog or your puppy and make it relative to them. So for like a Great Dane puppy, a 3-inch, like a phone book. Do they still have phone books?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Well, how about a curb?
Sarah's like, I have no idea.
A curb, a stairs. Okay, stop it.
Yes, sorry.
I've seen those in movies, Kathy.
Oh my God, right? With the phones with the cord on them. Anyway.
If that makes you feel better.
We digress.
Those would be great for Paws Up though, right? That would be a great surface. Yeah.
That'd be perfect.
Okay, so back in the day when I used to use that, we used to wrap them with electrical tape so they weren't
oh my gosh, I was just going to say that. You did that when we were in the old school and you literally came in with a wrapped, I'm like, what is it? She's like, here, just use it for Paws Up. I'm like, okay.
And it works because it's not slick.
Yeah.
Old school. All right. So now they have something. They've decided on it. They have it on a nice, stable surface. It's not a slick surface. How do they begin?
So I would you always want your dog to either be hungry, lonely, and bored, right? So,
and if it's a puppy, pottied,
always. So you want to grab your treats. I tend to use like a medium you don't want to do too high a value where the dog is so interested in the cookie in your hand, or a low value where they're like, you want to use something that they're interested in, but not too interested in. So usually I just have a cookie in my hand and I lure the dog, cookie right in front of the dog's nose the entire time, depending on how little the dog is. And you're just going to kind of lure the dog up onto the bucket or the object or whatever it is. Now, depending on how high the surface is, you don't want to hold the cookie too low, right? Because if you hold it too low, they're going to lie down. If you hold it up too high, they're going to sit. So like Kathy was saying, it's really good to kind of find that in between and figure out, how to hold your cookie and where and whatnot. So
now some dogs, and may you have this dog, sees the cookie, sees the thing, throws their feet on it and says, yep, what's next? And you're like, yes, I'm an awesome trainer, right?
Yeah.
Some dogs are like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
So you might reward them in increments. Like if they lean towards it or they sniff it or, they move a foot near it, you've got to say, I will give you a quick win. And then I'm going to raise my criteria and I'm going to ask for a little bit more. And it depends on your dog. If they're shy, nervous, cautious, then it's going to take a little bit longer. And maybe you have to say, this isn't a really great surface. Maybe I should try something else, but go slow and eventually they'll get it. They'll get it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing that you can do if you're having a lot of trouble, because also you're going to get frustrated, right? If you're doing this for 10, 15 minutes, the puppy's just not getting it, take a step back. Another thing that you can do is make an aisle for yourself, right? So if you're standing in front of facing a wall or a cabinet or something like that, put the object in between you and then try to lure your puppy or dog over the object so that you can capture them stepping onto it. Because sometimes dogs are super aversive to putting their paws on new surfaces. You might have to take a couple steps back, and instead of practicing putting paws up on a new object, you might need to practice your dog just putting their paws walking over new surfaces and stuff. So you kind of have to figure out what's going to work best for your dog, but creating that little aisle and using a bigger surface can also help you be successful, being able to capture that moment when they even just put one little paw on there. You can then mark and reward that, like Kathy mentioned.
And I think too, that you want to watch your body orientation, because if you're facing a dog and you have the food and you're facing each other, he's like, well, I probably shouldn't move because you're right there. So you might have to lean back, or maybe your side is to the dog. Maybe for some dogs that are really sensitive about personal space, you might have to have your back to the dog and just be luring them. But what I really would suggest is that everybody get their phone, flip the screen, put it on the floor, and video themselves.
I feel like Kathy is in my brain, or maybe I'm in her brain, because that is literally what I was going to say next.
It happens. We work together
all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
I think because we're this close together, and I think you knew it, or I knew it from your brain. Either way, but that's literally exactly.
Either way, that's an awesome way, whether it came out of Lauren's mouth or Kathy's brain. Either way, it's an awesome way to be able to figure out what the heck are you doing wrong, right? If you're sitting there trying to get your front paws up and it's been 15 minutes or so, you have to record yourself, because you're going to be able to see where the issue is. Maybe you thought you were holding the food high enough, but in the video, you can obviously see you're holding it too high. That's why the dog keeps sitting. So be able to look back and watch your body language and how the dog is also responding to your lure can be so helpful.
It's like having us with them,
right?
Which is terrifying.
Yeah.
And so when you get on playback and you watch it, make notes, right? Don't watch it and go, oh my God, that shirt looks terrible. Like, stop it. Just make notes and then use those notes for the next session. I'll also say that some dogs, I prefer to feed them in place, but some dogs, I throw the cookie and say, get it, because they need to move out of that position anyway to do another one. But also they need the movement to kind of like reset. If you do that, be sure the thing that your dog was on when you throw the cookie doesn't get kicked out of the way. If they're very enthusiastic, right? And they flip it and they're like, oh my God, now you have to work through that. So use common sense. Think of all the pitfalls before you start. And my biggest tip is make sure you record yourself.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right. So your front paws up is working your dog's front proprioception and then also the rear strength, right? Because when you put your front paws up, you're then distributing more weight to the rear. What would be the next exercise you guys would then have owners try at home?
I mean, well, how serious are we getting? I mean, you could
young beginner level. But all right. So also like in your canine gym beginner skills class, what do you guys do next?
I was going to say pivots. We do front feet and pivots.
Yeah.
So that would be where so you have paws up, which is the first initial step. And then the front feet are on the object and the back feet are actually moving around the object while the front feet are still staying on. So not only are you adding in that strength in the rear, you're adding in rear end awareness. So you're teaching the dog that not only do you have a front and rear, but the rear actually can move independently from the front. So those are really good too.
Yeah. We want to see that rear start to cross over in the back. And we started by, again, we're rewarding it incrementally, right? So we're facing the dog and their paws up, and we might take a little step to the right. If we see even one back paw move, we're like, yes, and we feed. And they're like, why did I get a cookie? I don't know, right? And we keep doing that. And then we increase, and maybe we feed after 2 and then 3. And once we can move into them and they move away from us, keeping their front feet solid, then we're going to ask them to move independently of us. And that's when we're holding the cookie and sort of getting them to pirouette underneath it. But that's more advanced. And I do want to say that if you have a young puppy, just 1 or 2 reps, please.
Yeah.
And then you're done, and then start again later, because really we're not trying to strength build or endurance work a puppy probably until they're 6 months old. So all of these things, we're doing very low reps of them.
Yeah. My thing in classes is I say, we do paws up, we do pivots. I do 3 steps to the right, 3 steps to the left, and then we're off. Mm-hmm. We walk around, we do spin, we do get it, we'll do ready catch, just something to get the dog moving around, and then we go back to it. But my max in the beginning is 3 steps on either side.
That's awesome. Good guideline.
We could talk about pickup sticks, even though it's really not like canine gym-ish. It kind of is.
Kind of. It's like Cavaletti's.
Yeah. So you get a bunch of wooden dowels. I'm sure you have about 20 hanging around your house.
Who doesn't, right?
Who doesn't, right? I think I have 30, I'm not bragging. And you put them down in a pile. And then in that pile of sticks, you put high value treats. And then you dog on a leash and you walk them through all of those. And what's really cool is they're focused on getting the treats, and they are picking up their back feet to not step on poles. And they're doing it without turning their head. They have that awareness. They have that peripheral vision. They can tell what's going on behind them. And I think it's so cool for owners to see that. They're like, oh my God, look what my dog can do. And of course, start with them spread out a bit. Don't really go with 30, start with 4 or 5, but do a couple reps of that. Let them walk in between the poles and realize they have to pick up each foot independently of the other. It's a really cool exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you do the pickup sticks and you feel like that's too hard, or they're not picking up their feet, then you can kind of just lay them kind of next to each other in a row, just so that way your dog can walk through them like Cavaletti's in general. But I love the pickup sticks.
Yep.
Yeah. And if you're not like us and you don't have 30 dowels laying around, you could do this with, if you got some pool noodles in the garage, if you have some big tree branches outside, you could also do it. It's more similar to Cavaletti's, but if you have a ladder that you could lay down flat, you could also do it with the ladder and have them stepping through that as well.
Yep. And if you have a ladder, there's one way where you put a ladder down and the rungs are close to the ground. And then if you flip it on the other side, it's a little higher off. At least one of my ladders is like that.
I think it's a dog ladder.
It's the dog ladder.
I think a regular ladder would just...
It's pretty even. Yeah.
So
either way,
but again, make sure, like if you have a teeny wee baby Maltese, he's going to need like a pole to get over those ladder rungs. So you're going to want
use straws for him.
Pencils.
Oh, pencils.
Straws pencils for your pickup sticks for your little Maltese.
Love it.
All right. So I think that's a lot of really good information for everybody to start with. To recap, we're talking about paws up. And then once you got that knocked out, I would go on different surfaces. And then after that, we'd start rotation. And after that, you could play with sticks because it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us this week. It was awesome to have you to talk about all these awesome canine gym skills. If you guys have been enjoying the podcast, please go rate, leave a review, or share your favorite episodes with your friends and family so that we can also help as many dog owners as possible. All right, guys. Talk again next week.
Yes, we will see you then.
Bye, guys. Thank you for having me.
Bye.